Yo, what's going on, peeps? Your boy, Atypical Security Guard, finishing up for the night. Wanted to come on and do a quick live stream before I get out of here. So by now, I believe that most everyone has seen the horrible footage from the surveillance video that pertains to Puff Daddy, P. Diddy, Sean Combs, and the singer Cassie. I think her name is actually Cassie Ventura. And I will just say allegedly, because I don't want to be, liable for anything. Clearly, I don't have any money. So, but you've probably seen the video footage, right? I think that if you are a decent human being, you watch that and it's horrific, right? It's sad to think that that's even possible from someone that I've kind of grown up with Puffy, I'm a kid of the 90s. I grew up listening to Bad Boy, following all the acts that Puffy put out, from Jodeci to Mary J. Blige to Usher to Notorious Big to Mace. Like, I grew up on that. So watching that, it's a sad day, man. It's also a sad day because I have a wife, I have 3 beautiful daughters, and to watch a woman be treated like that, to watch a woman be, have a man put his hands on her like that, it's absolutely just abhorrent. There's no excuse for it, and it's fucked up. So that being said, in the private security industry, one thing that you see a lot of guys wanting to do is work in executive protection. So there's all types of levels of private security. Everything from watching a door at a warehouse, to working in your shopping centers, to working in your retail establishments, all the way up to working corporate security jobs, corporate security contracts. But one of the 2 main gigs that most people, if they were being 100% honest with you, most guys, if they were given the opportunity, the 2 types of jobs that they would work would be mercenary work, which is like overseas contract security, right? And close executive protection. What is close executive protection? That's doing private security details for foreign dignitaries, high-profile businessmen. But more than that, it would be in the entertainment industry. So you're talking about your rappers, your actors, and people like Puff, which would be your major media moguls. So understanding that a lot of people, myself included, would like to potentially work in that environment, it got me thinking about everything that we've seen that's kind of come up around this situation with Diddy, right? I'm watching that video and I'm thinking to myself, how is it that he's able to chase her down this hallway? They're able to have this knockdown, drag out fight, which is clearly an assault on his part, and nobody comes out of the room. And then it dawns on me, a celebrity of that status, somebody with that type of bankroll, more than likely that entire floor was rented out. Was rented out for him, rented out for his people, for his security detail, right? And then there was conversation and talk that after the fact of that situation, that allegedly approximately $50,000 was given to someone inside of that hotel to take the security footage out of the system, the CCTV system, right? So that no one would potentially ever see that. And that got me thinking, if you're working in a close protection detail for Puff, for Cassie, or if you're just an everyday hotel associate or security individual or loss prevention officer that's working at that hotel, in both of those situations, there's 2 probable potential issues that either one of those security guards could be faced with. If you're working a close protection executive detail for Puff or Cassie, and you're seeing domestic violence, let's say that you're even seeing situations of potential sex trafficking, illegal drug usage, anything and everything. Where does your loyalty lie? Do you speak up? Do you say something? Do you potentially alert the police? And then for the person who's working that everyday 9 to 5 job at that hotel, maybe they're making between $16 and $30 an hour working as a loss prevention officer or hotel security. If you're faced with the opportunity to get a $50,000 payout to look the other way, to take that video footage out, and to give it to Puff and his people, allegedly, would you do it? See, I think that it's real easy for people to desire the glitz and the glamour, right? You look at people that are famous, you look at people that are in Hollywood, you look at people in the music industry, and you're like, man, to be around that, to be in that environment, to be close to that, like that would be so awesome and so amazing. But we don't often think about the horrible things that you would see, the derogatory things that you would see, the secrets that you would have to keep. Would you be able to do that? How much is your silence worth? And ultimately, like, would that be something that you would feel comfortable with? I asked this question as a question because I don't know that I obviously can't answer that for you. So I am proposing that question to you. If you were working in a private security capacity for Puff, for Cassie, and you saw that, because guys, clearly someone knew that that type of stuff was happening. Clearly people heard it, people saw it, people were aware of it, but no one spoke up. Both of those artists have private security. Both of those artists have executive protection details that are all around them. Now, I would assume working in that environment, you're going to sign a non-disclosure agreement, but a non-disclosure agreement is not binding for people who are witnessing illegal activity. But at the same time, if your job is to work in an industry where your loyalty, your silence, your trust, that's your calling card. That's literally the only thing that gets you into that environment and keeps you in that environment. Are you willing to throw that away to do the right thing? And the right thing clearly would be to blow the whistle on things that seemingly have been happening in that environment for years. But clearly it's not happening. The right thing would be, no, this is what happened. We're going to turn this tape over to law enforcement as mandated reporters, and we're going to let them deal with it. Clearly that didn't happen and someone took the money. So if you put yourself in a situation where you want to be in that environment, would you be willing to look the other way? That's my question tonight. Let's see what we got here. PBE says, I love executive protection and high crime risk details. PBE, I have a question for you. As somebody who follows my channel and we talk a lot, would you be willing to look the other way in that Cassie Diddy situation? Would you be willing to, sell your silence, so to speak, right? Jake Judson, thanks for being here. He says no and no. Jake Judson says, I do what's right. Okay. That's good to hear. While you guys are thinking about that, I want to share some information on a follower, a subscriber that put up something on a message board that I read earlier today. He said that he had gone to a homeowners association party. So for those who don't know, like homeowners associations, it's like your gated community. places where people live, you know, it's like all gated off or whatever. And apparently, like, if you do certain types of things, if you do get-togethers or parties or barbecues, and some of these homeowners associations, they require that you have private security. You know, no different than working in a grocery store, shopping mall, retail establishment. Like, a large part of them having security is because it's mandated by their insurance. So I'm assuming that this homeowners association, they were mandated to have security because they're going to have this big get together. Now, the subscriber said that they hired security and the guy shows up and he's way overdoing it. He's got on, like, you know, a tactical vest. He's got, you know, way too much gear on. It's like hot. It's, you know, middle of the summer. And not only that, the guy shows up with an AR-15 pistol. So he's literally, like, not only kitted, but he has an AR-15 pistol for a barbecue. And this guy was like, you know, this was absolutely ridiculous. Like, there's no need for him to have that much gear on, number one. Number two, there's no need for him to have an AR-15 pistol. Like, literally, it's just a bunch of people getting together for a barbecue. It ain't that deep. It ain't that serious. Hold that thought. So while I agree with him on one hand, and I get where he's coming from, maybe the AR-15 pistol was a little bit too much. Maybe the tactical vest and the other trinkets and items, based on the fact that they were having a barbecue, might have been too much. But I do want to share a story with you guys. From the moment that I wake up, I put a firearm on my hip. The second that I get out of bed, take my shower, you know, before I get my first sip of coffee, I grab my firearm, one of many firearms that I have. I'm always armed from the time that I get up till the time I go to bed. And historically, up until I would say like the last year or so, my wife would just be like, why are you putting on a gun? Like it's not necessary. Until she kind of started to realize the kind of neighborhood that we live in and things that we deal with. Now she kind of sees. But before that, you know, it was something that was a little bit odd to her. I listened to this story on Coleon Noir's channel, and this was about a year ago. And it was right around the 4th of July. He had a great conversation with this guy who, very similar to me, the second that he gets up, he puts a firearm, he has it on his body the entire day until he goes to bed. And much like my wife, his wife would give him a hard time, right? So he tells this story that it's a 4th of July party. There's a, you know, like a little neighborhood group of people. Everybody gets along, but there's one guy in the neighborhood. He lives in a house down at the end of the street, and he has an issue with everybody. He doesn't like how somebody's house is painted. He doesn't like that someone washes their car on Saturday. He doesn't like that one of the houses' grass is too high. He's a busybody. He's always getting into it with every single person on the block. And there's tension. There's tension all the way across the board. Like, they don't like him. He doesn't like them. There's always arguments. There's always problems. There's always drama. Stand by. So that's the background. So as we get to the 4th of July, a couple of the ladies in the neighborhood are like, you know what? We'll just call the guy Steve. You know what? We've got an issue with Steve. We're all getting together. All these families are going to have dinner. We're going to all shoot fireworks. Let's extend the olive branch to Steve. Steve's the asshole, right? So they extend the olive branch to Steve, and they're like, you know, come over. We're going to have dinner. You can be a part of this. Let's bury the hatchet. Okay? Now, keep in mind, the other guy, the husband, that always has his firearm, as they're walking out of the house to go to this dinner, like always, his wife is like, why are you bringing your firearm? We're just going down the street. We're just going to a barbecue. We know everybody that's there. This isn't necessary, right? You would think. But Steve is coming. So they say Steve shows up. Steve gets to the party right off the bat. Like, he's standoffish. Everybody's trying to be nice to him. Everybody's trying to ingratiate themselves with him. But just like before, he's copping an attitude, right? He's not getting along with people. There's a little bit of an argument there. There's a little bit of tension here. But nothing that they need to send him home about. It's just He doesn't fit in. And it's clear that he doesn't fit in, right? So after a while, in the kitchen, everybody's in there. They're all eating. Everybody's getting along. Steve comes in and he says something kind of off-color to somebody. And one of the ladies checks him on it. And before you know it, there's this big argument. Out of nowhere, Steve pulls out a gun. Guys, this is a real life story that I'm sharing with you. I'm paraphrasing the entirety of the situation. You can go to Coleon New Wars page. You can look for this video. Maybe I'll put a link in the description once this is over. But this is a real life story. So at one point, Steve freaks out, pulls out a gun and starts popping off shots. Everybody scatters. A couple of the moms realize that the kids are all throughout the house. Now, as Steve is shooting at people in the kitchen, he hits in the face our husband that always has his firearm. Now, no one else at the party has a firearm because everybody else that's there, they're just like the wife. They don't believe in firearms. They're not pro 2A. They don't think that you should have a firearm at a neighborhood barbecue. But Steve clearly did not get that message. And Steve is popping off shots. And he's now hit our husband right in the face. And the guy says it was like a sledgehammer. And for a second, it knocks him out. And as he comes to, he says he realizes I've been shot. And all he can hear is people screaming. Now, the wives have since run throughout the house. They've gathered all of the kids and they've taken them into a back room. And they literally have them up against a wall and they're huddling in fear with these kids. And Steve is walking through the house, looking for the women and looking for the kids. In that split second that the guy is shot in the face and he blacks out, he wakes up and he realizes, hey, I got to do something. He goes into the living room. He's behind Steve. He draws his firearm, pops off shots, and he puts the threat down. Had he not had his firearm, the only person that would have had a firearm at that party would have been Steve. Had he not had the wherewithal to, for the grace of God, regain consciousness and engage that threat, the wives and the kids would have perished. So my point in bringing this up is that as much as I understand where the subscriber is coming from in his story, that ha ha ha, this person is overly kidded. Ha ha ha, this person has an AR pistol. You don't need that. What would ever happen? What would ever happen at a barbecue in a neighborhood where everyone knows each other? Indeed. Because I can point to a story that I've just told you where that exact same situation led to a man being shot in the face and the potential for women and children to have lost their lives. Now, some people will say, that's anecdotal. You've grabbed one situation, you've drawn a parallel, and now you're saying that because of that one situation, we should have guns everywhere. Everyone should be armed. Everyone should, be ready at the drop of a hat to engage the threat. Right? Laws are made based off of one tragedy. Laws are made based off of anecdotal situations that don't happen on a daily basis, but they do happen. My only conjecture is that, hey, things do happen, and they seem to happen in the most mundane places. I say this every single time. When you guys watch my channel, those of you who don't follow me, those of you who just happen to be peeking in going, why is this guy dressed like that? Why is this guy in his car talking about whatever? Like, this doesn't make any sense. When you guys peek your head into my life, I want you to understand that when we are in these locations, grocery stores, retail establishments, convenience stores, shopping malls, churches. Wherever you find private security that's wearing a vest, that's carrying a taser, that has a firearm, and you think to yourself, that isn't necessary. That's not necessary. You're a rent-a-cop. You're a wannabe cop. You're a fake pig. I want you to ask yourself, where do the mass shootings happen? Out of the last 10 major newsworthy mass shootings, I would say between 4 and 5 have been at grocery stores. They've been in gun-free zones that are open to the public, like bowling alleys, Dollar Generals, convenience stores, schools. That's the reality. And unfortunately, a lot of people will not and have no need, or no desire rather, to protect themselves. They have no desire to recognize the threat that is constantly walking around you at every waking moment. And they're not going to protect themselves. And that's why we're there. Now, just like I was talking earlier in the situation with working executive protection for movie stars, rappers, and famous people, there's levels to everything. Your experience with security, your experience in security, you might only see the guy who's wearing the shirt, who's watching the warehouse door, who's shaking the windows to make sure they're locked. But that's not the only aspect or level of security. And there are people like myself whose sole job it is to protect you from the bad people who choose to do harm to you when you least expect it. So before we sign off here, I want to look through. I've asked you that question. Would you be willing to not say anything about what you've seen working in executive protection? Would you be willing to do that job, sign that non-disclosure agreement, and not talk about something as egregious as what Puff did to Cassie? Because think about it. That happened in 2016. His security detail, her security detail, no one said anything. And are you willing to sell your integrity for potentially $50,000? Would you have taken that money to take that tape out of that CCTV equipment and hand it over to Puff or his people? I will say this. Your integrity, your willingness to do the right thing no matter what the cost, that's invaluable. Because I'm going to say that the people who were around, who watched that, and whomever it was that sold that video footage to him, it's going to be really hard for them to work moving forward. In the short term, it might have seemed like the right thing to do. But in the long term, having it come out that you're a dirty person that is willing to put celebrity and money over the right thing, I don't know that that's going to continue to fly. Things that were okay over the last 20, 30, 40 years, the way that people have been moving, the way that people have been carrying themselves, the things that have been accepted, that shit's not flying in 2024, and it's not going to continue to fly moving forward. Everything is coming to light. So I don't think that people who have been in that position, who've allowed themselves to operate like that, and I'm talking about in the security capacity, I don't think they have work moving forward. I could be wrong. But some people are going to have to answer for that. All right, let me check out these comments before I get out of here. See if there's anything in here. Somebody says, I'm taking the money and then snitching. Since you thought you're only doing our job while the government and law don't give a fuck. Okay. Someone says, I lived in an HOA. Bad guys generally don't tell you when they're coming. That is true. That is true. All right. Yeah, I don't see anything on here that is super pressing. Bro Morris, yep. And okay, this is a great. So my man Morris, who has worked in executive protection, he says, yep, and I've been in that situation, and I treat it like any other domestic violence, and I keep it to myself. Wow. Now, if I'm put on the hotel security, I'm at least writing it in an incident report to cover my butt. Wow. Got to do a report. Better be on the officer track. Okay, well, hey, man, I would love to have that conversation. Maybe we can do a live stream about that. Talk about working in executive protection, non-disclosure agreements, and how that works with people. I don't, man, I would love, listen, it's real easy for me to sit here right here on this live stream and be like, I would do the right thing. I wouldn't take the money. I hope that I would. I hope that I would not take the money, that I would do the right thing. But I've made a ton of mistakes in my life, already. So, man, it's just hard to imagine seeing what you see on that video and anybody keeping that quiet. But clearly they did. Clearly they kept it quiet. And again, I just don't know how ultimately that doesn't come back on people that were around and saw that. So, okay, short stream tonight, guys. Glad I could share that story with you. Hopefully when you're watching these videos, when you're watching these live streams, it gives you an insight to what we do in private security and what we have going on here. If you are a security guard, if you're new to this channel, please like, share, and subscribe. Let people know what we're doing. Every single night that I work, I'm going to be dropping these videos. Every day that I work, when I'm coming in, I'll be talking about these kind of topics. This is an opportunity just to chop it up. We don't have situations where we have roll call, where we get together and we meet before we fan out and we do our shifts. And guys, look, we're all spread out across the country, across the world. When we do these videos, this is an opportunity for us to get together, to commune, and to chop it up and share information. So if you know of security guards who can utilize what we're doing on this platform, share it with them. If you're not a security guard and you're just stopping by, hey, welcome. Maybe you learn something. Maybe it changes your perspective on security and what we do. Maybe it doesn't. Okay, maybe you're just popping in to be a troll and see my sexy body. You know what I mean? That's okay too. Everybody's welcome. All right, guys, y'all have a great night. And as always, watch your back, watch your six, and be great. Be great.